we have been sort of enjoying the flashback machine that has been the episodes of The Last Dance, and we had 2 more last night, episodes 7 and 8. And I think we're all in agreement those were the 2 best episodes so far of the entire thing.
That's why this weekend was great. We had flashback and we had live events.
Actual things
UFC
happen.
249, which we'll get to, which was just fantastic. But, yeah, I thought the last 2 episodes last night, 7 and 8, were the 2 best. I mean, you got a ton of information, almost too much information jammed into those 2 episodes. And, again, stuff, Trey, you and I know that happened, but you kind of like relived it again, like, oh, yeah, that's right. And but, boy, a lot of information and a lot of things you hear Jordan say that he's saying that he thinks he's saying because he thinks that way, but I don't think he really thinks that way.
What did you just say, by the way? I think
you nailed it.
Yeah.
You actually nailed it.
It is amazing to think that actually makes sense once you see what he was talking about from last night's episode.
What he was trying to have everybody buy into, on how he was trying to bring everybody along, as opposed to just his psychotic mentality. In games and in practices was amazing.
Well, that point at the end was like, I did this to help you win a champion. No, you did it to help you win a championship, and they just happen to be along, which I'm totally fine with, by the way. But I don't think Michael Jordan's plan was to be altruistic, right?
No, listen, Michael Jordan gets to say and do a lot of things because he's got 6 rings on his fingers.
Correct.
And whether or not him saying and doing those things was, correlated or causation or any of those things that we normally talk about is going to be the debate coming off this episode, because it really centers around the psyche and his relationship with his dad. So that's, I guess the wild part is it did that all having to compete with live sports this weekend, and it was still such an overwhelmingly compelling part of the weekend.
Well, what do we always say? History is written by the winners, right, or the victors. And clearly Michael Jordan won, so he is dictating how this went in his mind.
I mean, overall, you're starting to hear more and more pushback a bit on the documentary, and we're talking to Jason Ayer, who directed this, but more and more from the outside, people watching it push back saying this is just a Michael Jordan documentary. It's not actually about the team enough. You're hearing teammates come out, though some bitter, obviously, and you could maybe see why in some cases, but it's getting a little more of this is too Michael Jordan centric. But I don't think any of us thought when they were saying a 10-part series on the Last Dance that it wasn't going to Well,
that's the sell.
That's exactly right.
This documentary would not have existed if Michael Jordan didn't give it a stamp of approval.
And I guess, we would not have this footage had he not said that it was okay for it to release. And so I guess I'd ask, and it's not like this has to be binary, but in this case, it kind of feels like it does, where, all right, would we take having this documentary in the form that we've got now or not having it at all because the person at the head of it wouldn't have signed off on anything else? So it seems like a worthwhile trade-off for, at the very least, the access to footage that wouldn't have otherwise been disclosed.
Right. We'll have Jason Ayer on with us, the director, a little bit later on. Also, we'll have Will Perdue, the former Bull center, who by the way, just as an aside, Judd Bushler and Will Perdue starting to look a lot alike.
Yeah, how about it? Yeah.
Starting to look a lot alike, those two. He'll be joining us as well. Plus, we'll talk to Daniel Cormier, ESPN's UFC analyst, who, by the way, is in line to fight one of the guys if he so chooses in the heavyweights that was on there. I don't think he's going to.
I think he may have to if he wants to keep going.
If he wants to keep going, we'll talk to him a little bit. Plus, Adrian Wojnarowski, our NBA insider, will join us, and Marvin Lewis will join us as well. But obviously, a lot of what we're talking about this morning is based on what happened last night. And I thought there were 3 central tenets of those 2 episodes last night. The relationship with his father, the comeback, and the Scottie Pippen I'm out situation. To me, those were the 3 prongs. And I thought we saw this was the most human I thought we saw Michael Jordan through this entire time.
Well, it was interesting because another one of the criticisms of the documentary had been just that we had not seen much in the way of Jordan's relationship with anyone in his family. His mother had been a part of it, and most notably, I think, for telling him to take the Nike meeting and
Mom.
And for looking younger than Michael Jordan for most of this. But other than that, there wasn't a lot to substantiate a lot of these relationships, and all of that maybe even made this pop more that, all right, Michael and his father seem to be the driving force behind so much of what happened in his life.
Yeah, by the way, this Last Dance recap is brought to you by AT&T, and here's Jason Ayer on the Last Dance Jalen Jacoby After Show podcast talking about that and how the humanity of what a horrible situation let us behind the curtain a little bit with Michael.
It's the most reticent that I had seen him. It's the most subdued that I had seen him in the course of the 3 interviews. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's the most human he was, because I don't care who you are. You can be superhuman or you can be just Joe Smith walking down the street, anonymous. If you're talking about the death of your dad and he was really close to you and you're talking about it in such a horrific way, you're going to be subdued. You're going to be reluctant to and Michael, as you know, isn't that generous with his emotions. He's not an open book. So he knew those questions were coming. Obviously, he knows we're going to tackle these subjects at some point during our interview process. So I think it was difficult for him.
And that was, to me, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when he was talking about his dad, it was definitely more than one interview.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
there were different backgrounds. He was wearing different clothes. So when we talked to Jason, I'm curious to see how it was that you had to bring that up on more than one occasion and how Michael dealt with that, having to sort of go down that road more than one time.
And like he said, I would agree. You're going to get some emotion, especially with the relationship that they had. And you got it. You got to see, peel back the curtain a little bit on that. It was as emotional, even him talking about, practicing his teammates. That's how episode 7 ended, with him kind of getting emotional, talking about his teammates.
And I think that was the most compelling scene, maybe outside of the ending of the 8th episode, where it's him sobbing on the floor in the locker room with the basketball after he wins that first title after his father's murder.
You're looking for moments. And again, Trey, you and I lived these. And I was playing during some of this, so I had other things I didn't follow it as much as some would. But some of the things that did post me playing, like right after my career ended, I retired in 94, but realizing and having to come back again, just what the baseball strike did. I mean, what are you going to come back that year had the baseball strike not happened in 94?
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.